In law enforcement, there's an unspoken bond, a brotherhood forged in danger and sealed by trust. But on a cold February morning in 2008, that sacred trust shattered in Elderbrook, Vermont, leaving a community to question everything they believed about those who wore the badge. State Trooper Thea Callahan wore her badge with pride for 10 years, a single mother, respected officer, and mentor to young recruits. But beneath the polished surface of the Vermont State Police, a deadly secret was brewing. One that would end with Thea lying in a pool of her own blood, betrayed by someone she should have been able to trust. Detective Kieran Blackthorne, a veteran investigator with a quarter-century of experience, still remembers the morning the call came in. In 25 years on the force, I'd never seen anything like it. Sometimes, the most dangerous predators aren't the ones we're chasing, they're the ones standing right beside us. What happened in Elderbrook wasn't just about an affair gone wrong. It was about power, control, and the deadly lengths one officer would go to protect his secrets. By the time the truth emerged, 3 families would be destroyed, a department would be shaken to its core, and a teenage girl would be left without a mother. This is the story of how Senior Trooper Niall Rafferty, a man with a spotless record and picture-perfect life, orchestrated the cold-blooded murder of his colleague and lover. A story that proves the deadliest crimes don't always happen in the shadows. Sometimes they unfold right under the glare of a badge. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just another true crime story. It's a warning about the thin blue line between protector and predator, and how easily that line can blur when power corrupts. Elderbrook, Vermont sits nestled in rolling hills, where maple trees line streets named after the founding families. Population, 25,000. A place where folks still leave their doors unlocked and wave to passing patrol cars. February 2008 changed all that. The winter winds carried more than just snow that year. They brought a chill that would freeze the heart of this tight-knit community. The Vermont State Police Northern Division Barracks stood as a symbol of order and protection. Behind its brick walls, troopers shared coffee, swapped stories, and formed bonds meant to last a lifetime. Among them was Thea Callahan, badge number 2279, a 38-year-old single mother who'd carved her place in a male-dominated field through grit and unwavering integrity. Every morning, Thea would drop her daughter Autumn at Elderbrook High before heading to her shift. She kept a photo of the teenager tucked in her vest pocket, right next to her heart. Autumn was her compass, her reason for pushing through double shifts and weekend patrols. Their Friday movie nights were sacred, a ritual of popcorn, blankets, and shared dreams of the future. Then there was Senior Trooper Niall Rafferty. At 43, he embodied everything the force stood for, or seemed to. His commendations lined office walls, his tactics were taught to recruits, and his family photos graced department newsletters. Marina Rafferty, his wife of 20 years, taught second grade at Elderbrook Community School. Their boys, Liam and Cole, played Little League on the field behind the station. They were the portrait of small-town success. But beneath Elderbrook's peaceful surface, currents of desire and desperation were pulling these lives toward a point of no return. The hallways of Northern Division held whispers, glances, and secrets that would eventually explode into violence. Detective Kieran Blackthorne remembers walking into the Callahan house that February morning. Steam still rose from a coffee cup on the kitchen counter. A school permission slip waited for signature on the fridge. And there, sprawled on the hardwood floor, lay a woman who'd sworn to protect and serve, betrayed by one of her own. What started as workplace glances between Thea and Niall had spiraled into an affair that would rock the department to its foundation. But this isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about power, about the thin line between protector and predator, and about how a huge amount of money inherited would turn attraction into obsession, and obsession into murder. The badge that Thea Callahan wore with pride would offer no protection against the man who shared her oath. In the end, it would be her 16-year-old daughter Autumn who'd stumble upon the gruesome scene, a moment that would haunt Elderbrook for years to come. This is how a model officer became a murderer, how a daughter lost her mother, and how a community lost its innocence. The truth, as Detective Blackthorne would discover, was more chilling than any winter morning in Vermont. Before badge number 2279 marked her final resting place, Thea Callahan walked a path paved with determination. Starting at the Vermont Police Academy in her late 20s, she'd already weathered a divorce and the challenges of raising a 4-year-old daughter alone. The academy's physical demands broke many recruits, but Thea pushed through every obstacle, graduating in the top 5% of her class. Fellow officers remember her first day at Northern Division. She carried herself with quiet confidence, refusing to let snide comments about quota hires dim her resolve. Within months, her arrest record and community engagement earned respect, even from the old guard. She had a way with troubled teens, perhaps because she understood their struggles as both a cop and a mother. Life as a single mother in law enforcement meant constant juggling. Autumn grew up doing homework in the station break room, learning to cook simple meals when shifts ran long. But Thea never missed the important moments: dance recitals, parent-teacher conferences, those sacred Friday movie nights. Her colleagues marveled at her balance of strength and compassion. Then Senior Trooper Niall Rafferty transferred to Northern Division in late 2006. Their paths first crossed during a domestic violence call. Niall, impressed by Thea's handling of a volatile situation, began requesting her as backup. Coffee breaks turned into long conversations about the job's toll. He confided about the emptiness of his marriage to Marina, how teaching second grade left her unable to understand the darkness he faced daily. Thea shared her fears of dying young, leaving Autumn alone. The attraction built slowly, professionally at first. Shared patrols became longer. Paperwork sessions stretched into evening. Other officers noticed the lingering looks, the way they gravitated toward each other at briefings. In a department where everyone watched everyone else, their growing closeness raised eyebrows. By summer 2007, they'd crossed a line. Empty parking lots became meeting spots. Burner phones carried messages they couldn't risk sending through department channels. Niall's tactical expertise helped them avoid detection, or so they thought. But in small towns, secrets have a way of seeping through walls. The warning signs emerged like storm clouds. Autumn overheard heated arguments through her bedroom wall, Niall's voice, usually so controlled, rising in anger. Thea began carrying herself differently, jumping at unexpected sounds. Her partner noticed bruises she blamed on training accidents. When she requested a shift change in December, the watch commander noted fear in her eyes. Then came the inheritance. Marina's father, a successful businessman, passed away, leaving her $600,000. The money went straight into a joint account, money Niall would lose in a divorce. Within weeks, the arguments between him and Thea intensified. She wanted him to leave Marina, but he had everything to lose. Department dynamics shifted. Officers who once respected Niall noticed his mask slipping. He snapped at rookies, botched routine calls, spent hours alone in the parking lot on his phone. Thea withdrew from her usual social circles, requesting solo patrols whenever possible. The tension between them became palpable, crackling like static before a storm. In early February, a janitor working late heard them arguing in the locker room. Thea's words carried through the door. "If you won't tell her, I will." Niall's response was too low to make out, but the sound of a locker being slammed echoed through the empty halls. 1 week later, Thea Callahan would be found dead in her kitchen, and all the warning signs would suddenly become crystal clear. But by then, it would be too late. February 11th, 2008, 6:45 a.m. The morning light barely touched the frost-covered windows of the Callahan home when 16-year-old Autumn descended the stairs, backpack slung over one shoulder. The house felt wrong. No coffee brewing, no sound of her mother's morning routine. The kitchen light was on, unusual for that hour. Autumn's world shattered in fragments. Her mother's service boots splayed at an unnatural angle, a dark pool spreading across the hardwood floor, the metallic smell that would haunt her dreams for years to come. "My mom, please, there's blood everywhere." Autumn's voice cracked on the 911 recording. The dispatcher kept her on the line while units responded. Officers who'd worked alongside Thea now rushed to her home, their worst fears confirmed by the scene before them. Detective Kieran Blackthorne arrived at 7:15 a.m. 25 years of homicide investigation had taught him to trust his instincts. The scene felt wrong from the moment I walked in, he would later testify. Thea's service weapon lay too perfectly placed near her right hand. The blood spatter pattern told a different story than suicide. The gun, spotlessly clean despite the blood-soaked scene. No gunpowder residue on Thea's hands. The bullet's trajectory, impossible for self-infliction. Someone had staged this scene, but left behind crucial mistakes. Crime scene techs discovered partial boot prints in blood, carefully masked but visible under UV light. Size 11, too large for Thea's feet. The kitchen window, typically locked according to Autumn, stood slightly ajar. A single dark fiber caught on the latch would later match Niall Rafferty's department-issued jacket. The digital trail revealed a carefully orchestrated deception. Thea's phone contained deleted texts from a burner number. The last message, sent at 11:42 p.m., "We need to talk tonight." Email records showed escalating tensions. Thea had drafted but never sent a letter to Marina Rafferty detailing the affair and Niall's increasingly erratic behavior. Surveillance footage from nearby traffic cameras captured a black department SUV circling Thea's neighborhood between 2 and 3 a.m. The vehicle's GPS tracker had been disabled, a technique Niall had taught at the academy. But he'd forgotten about the dashcam's backup system, recording his familiar silhouette behind the wheel. The timeline emerged through phone records and witness statements. At 1:47 a.m., Niall signed out of his shift. Instead of heading home to Marina and their sons, he drove to Thea's house. A neighbor walking his dog reported hearing raised voices around 2:30 a.m. By 3:15 a.m., all went quiet. The medical examiner placed time of death between 2:45 and 3:30 a.m. Single gunshot wound to the chest, close range. The bullet passed through her heart, a marksman's shot. Thea never had time to defend herself. Her last moments played out in the kitchen, where she'd shared countless meals with her daughter. Detective Blackthorne's team discovered Thea's personal diary hidden in a bedroom vent. The final entry, dated February 10th. "He's not who I thought he was. I can't keep this secret anymore. Marina deserves to know the truth about her husband and the inheritance. I'll tell her tomorrow if he won't." Tomorrow never came for Thea Callahan, but the truth she died protecting would soon come to light, unveiling a web of deceit that would shake the Vermont State Police to its core. Just as Detective Blackthorne's team thought they'd grasped the scope of this tragedy, a paper trail exposed an even darker motive. A junior detective, digging through financial records, uncovered the catalyst that turned a volatile affair into premeditated murder. 1 month before Thea's death, Marina Rafferty inherited $600,000 from her late father's estate. The money landed in a joint account she shared with Niall, a small fortune that would vanish the moment divorce papers hit the courthouse steps. With Thea threatening to expose their affair, Niall faced losing not just his reputation, but access to wealth that could secure his future. But money wasn't the only shadow falling across this investigation. On March 1, 2008, a night shift nurse named Violet McKenzie came forward with information that splintered the case wide open. She'd seen a black sedan idling near the Callahan home on the night of the murder. A car matching Marina Rafferty's, complete with the distinctive Elderbrook Elementary parking sticker. The driver sat there for almost 20 minutes, McKenzie stated in her recorded testimony. Around 2 a.m., just before I headed home from my shift, I remember checking my watch because it seemed odd someone sitting in their car that late. Marina Rafferty's initial alibi, grading papers at home while her son slept, began to crack under scrutiny. Her older son, Liam, remembered waking up around 1 a.m. to find the house empty. When questioned again, Marina's timeline shifted. She claimed insomnia had driven her to take a late-night drive, but couldn't explain why she'd chosen Thea's neighborhood. The forensics lab delivered another breakthrough. Gunshot residue found on Niall's jacket matched the powder from Thea's service weapon. But trace evidence told an even more compelling story. Fibers from Marina's coat turned up on Thea's kitchen window frame. 2 distinct DNA profiles appeared on the murder weapon. Niall's on the grip, Marina's on the barrel. Detective Blackthorne faced a chilling possibility. Had Niall enlisted his wife's help in silencing Thea? Or had Marina, discovering her husband's infidelity, taken matters into her own hands? The money provided motive for both, Marina protecting her inheritance, Niall ensuring his access to it. Security footage from a gas station 3 miles from the crime scene captured Marina's car at 2:17 a.m., minutes after Niall's department SUV passed the same cameras. 2 vehicles, 2 suspects, moving like shadows through the night. Thea died. But the most damning evidence lay hidden in plain sight. A search of the Rafferty home uncovered a laptop containing deleted emails between husband and wife. Messages that painted a picture of calculated conspiracy. "She's going to ruin everything," Niall wrote. "We can't let that happen," Marina replied. "Think about the boys, about their future." The investigation revealed how deeply money had poisoned the Rafferty's marriage. Marina's inheritance wasn't just a windfall, it was a chain binding her to Niall. Financial records showed years of mounting debt, hidden credit cards, gambling losses he had concealed from his wife. The $600,000 wasn't just money to him, it was salvation. For Detective Blackthorne, the evidence painted a picture of cold calculation. This wasn't a crime of passion, he noted. This was an execution planned by 2 people who had everything to lose and thought they were smart enough to get away with it. The pieces fell into place like shell casings on a firing range. Niall's tactical knowledge, Marina's access to Thea's neighborhood without raising suspicion, their shared financial motive. A husband and wife bound together not by love, but by the fear of losing everything they'd built on lies. March 8, 2008, 5:45 a.m. Fog clung to the streets of Elderbrook as tactical teams surrounded the Rafferty home. Detective Blackthorne chose dawn's quietest hour, hoping to minimize trauma to the children sleeping inside. The doorbell's chime shattered the morning silence. Marina Rafferty answered in her robe, her face draining of color as officers pushed past her. Upstairs, Niall reached for his service weapon, but stopped when he saw the red dots dancing across his chest. The man who'd sworn to uphold the law now stood powerless as that same law closed in. Liam and Cole Rafferty watched from the top of the stairs as their father was led away in handcuffs. Their confusion would soon turn to shame as headlines spread through Elderbrook. Trusted trooper murders fellow officer to hide affair. The picture-perfect family facade crumbled in the harsh light of truth. The trial began in August 2009, transforming the Elderbrook County Courthouse into an arena where trust and betrayal collided. Prosecutor Sloane Kingsley built her case methodically, each piece of evidence another nail in Niall's coffin. "This isn't just about murder," Kingsley told the jury. "This is about the calculated destruction of a family by a man who wore his badge as a shield while plotting execution." Defense attorney Bennett Redwood fought back, painting Marina as the true killer, a jealous wife eliminating her rival. But the evidence told a different story. Ballistics matched the bullet to Niall's service weapon. His DNA covered the trigger. Security footage tracked his department SUV to the scene. Then came the testimony that silenced the courtroom. Autumn Callahan took the stand, her voice steady despite her tears. She described the final weeks of her mother's life, the whispered phone calls, the arguments that bled through walls, the growing fear in Thea's eyes. "The night before she died, Mom sat me down for what she called an important talk," Autumn testified. "She said if anything ever happened to her, there was a letter in her safety deposit box. She made me memorize the box number. I thought she was being paranoid." That letter, recovered by Detective Blackthorne, detailed Niall's threats, the manipulation, the way he'd used his position to isolate Thea. "If you're reading this," she wrote, "it means he chose his money over my life." Marina Rafferty's testimony brought another shock. Given immunity, she revealed how Niall had orchestrated everything. He had convinced her Thea was unstable, threatening their family. The late-night drive was his idea. Keep watch while he talked sense into his fellow officer. "I never thought he'd kill her," Marina sobbed on the stand. "He said he just needed to scare her into silence. When he came home that night, his hands were shaking. He told me, 'It's done. "We're safe now." The jury took just 6 hours to reach their verdict. As guilty echoed through the courthouse, Autumn Callahan gripped her aunt's hand. Justice wouldn't bring back her mother, but it ensured the man who betrayed his badge would never wear one again. October 15, 2009. The verdict that shook Elderbrook to its core echoed through a packed courtroom. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Niall Rafferty, once a decorated state trooper, stood motionless as Judge Hamilton delivered the sentence, his polished badge and pressed uniform replaced by prison orange, the final transformation from protector to predator, complete. Marina Rafferty, granted immunity for her testimony, walked free but into a prison of different kind. The community that once embraced her turned cold. Her teaching position at Elderbrook Elementary quietly terminated. The inheritance that sparked this tragedy now paid for therapy sessions for her sons, who struggled to understand why their father would never come home. The ripple spread through the Vermont State Police. Northern Division underwent a complete overhaul. Captain Wesley Thorne, who'd vouched for Niall's character, resigned in disgrace. Internal Affairs launched a sweeping investigation, uncovering a culture of silence that had allowed warning signs to go unreported. New policies emerged from Thea's blood: mandatory psychological evaluations, strict protocols for reporting colleague misconduct, anonymous tip lines for officers to report concerns without fear of retaliation. The thin blue line, once used to shield wrongdoing, was redrawn with accountability at its core. But the deepest wounds belonged to Autumn Callahan. At 18, she left Elderbrook, carrying her mother's badge number tattooed over her heart. The college scholarship fund, set up by her mother's fellow officers, went unused. Instead, she enrolled in the police academy, determined to restore honor to the badge that had failed to protect her mother. Marina and her sons moved to Oregon, changing their name to escape the shadow of shame. Liam and Cole Rafferty became the Henderson Boys, their father's crimes a secret they carried in silence. Marina's inheritance, meant to secure their future, barely covered the costs of starting over. The Elderbrook Police Department transformed its training programs. New recruits now study Thea's case as a cautionary tale about power, corruption, and the sacred trust they're sworn to uphold. Her photo hangs in the briefing room, a constant reminder that evil doesn't always lurk in dark alleys. Sometimes it wears a badge and calls itself brother. Detective Blackthorne retired in 2015, but Thea's case still haunts him. "We're trained to look for monsters," he said in his final interview, "but the real danger often comes from those we trust most." Niall didn't just murder Thea, he murdered the faith this community had in its protectors. Today, Autumn Callahan serves as a detective in Burlington, specializing in domestic violence cases. Her mother's story has become a rallying cry for police reform nationwide. The changes born from tragedy continue to ripple outward, touching departments across the country. Niall Rafferty sits in a maximum security cell, writing appeals that gather dust in court archives. The $600,000 that drove him to murder now funds a foundation in Thea's name, supporting children of officers lost to domestic violence. In the end, the money he killed for became his ultimate punishment, forever out of reach, like the freedom he traded for 30 pieces of silver. The echoes of February 2008 still resonate through the halls of Elderbrook's police department. A single bullet didn't just end Thea Callahan's life, it shattered the invisible shield of trust that once protected those who wore the badge. Power, when mixed with desperation, becomes a deadly cocktail. Niall Rafferty's fall from grace exposed how easily authority can corrupt, how a badge can become both weapon and shield. His current life unfolds in a 6x8 cell at Green Mountain Correctional, where daily counts and metal bars replace the freedom he once patrolled. Marina now teaches 3rd grade in Portland, Oregon, under her maiden name. Her inheritance, blood money that sparked this tragedy, funds scholarships for children of domestic violence survivors. Liam and Cole, no longer bearing their father's name, build lives far from Vermont's shadows. Their story serves as a reminder that evil's ripples touch innocent shores. Detective Blackthorne's final case became his defining one. Though retired, he still speaks at police academies, teaching new recruits that their greatest threats sometimes wear the same uniform. Watch your partners, he tells them. Not just their backs, but their souls. But perhaps the most powerful legacy lives through Autumn Callahan. Now Detective Callahan, she carries her mother's spirit into every domestic violence case she handles. The scared 16-year-old who found her mother in that blood-soaked kitchen transformed her trauma into purpose. Her badge number, 2279, matching her mother's. In Elderbrook today, flowers still appear on Thea's grave every Friday movie night. A reminder that while power can corrupt and badges can betray, love endures. Even in darkness, even after death. The thin blue line meant to protect us can sometimes become a noose. Thea Callahan's story teaches us to question not just the monsters in shadows, but the demons in uniform. For in the end, the greatest danger isn't always the stranger in the dark. It's the trusted face in the light. Remember her name, remember her badge, and most importantly, remember that justice, like trust, must be guarded with eternal vigilance. In this instance, one police officer's greed destroyed multiple lives, but from those ashes rose a stronger system, a more vigilant force, and a daughter's unwavering commitment to protect and serve the right way. Don't let these stories of justice fade into darkness. Hit subscribe to join our community of truth seekers, and ring that notification bell to witness every revelation as it unfolds. Share your thoughts below. What warning signs did you spot in Thea's case? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Your insights help us all stay vigilant against the predators hiding behind badges of trust. Remember, sometimes the most important evidence isn't found at crime scenes, but in the quiet moments when someone chooses to speak up. Join us next week as we peel back another layer of humanity's darkest truths. Stay safe, stay aware, and never stop questioning the shadows, even when they wear a uniform.